Hi, my name's Mark.
Hi, my name's Sam, and we've actually been married for 39 years.
And together, we're the lead pastors of the Rock Church. So for 37 years, we've served in churches. We've been serving under leadership, different leaderships. And in December 2020, in the middle of COVID, when a lot of churches seem to have come to an end, we got this overwhelming conviction that this is our time, this is our moment to actually start a church.
We were praying about the future, what it looked like, but on the same morning we just had this undeniable conviction that we should start our own church.
And we actually got a phone call from a lady who said, "You need to start your own church." And I actually jumped out of bed and went, "Yes!"
Yeah, I didn't quite jump out of bed and have that same enthusiasm. I think for me, the process looked very different to yours, didn't it? Well, I think on a daily basis, I was talking this through with God, giving him my reasons why I shouldn't do this or why we shouldn't do this. Just wrestling the whole idea of it, really putting my head in too much of the detail of it, and prayed lots about it, but really didn't want to talk a lot about it with you either, did I? And then randomly I got a message from a friend who I hadn't seen for quite a few years. And it's in the middle of COVID. She was making her way down to London to see some family that she was in a bubble with, and asked if we could meet up. And back then it was February, the beginning of February. We could only meet outdoors with one other person, so I arranged to go and meet with her and just shared some of my frustrations with her about what had happened over the last 6 months or so. And she very clearly felt that she'd got a word from God to say, "Sam, you've just got to get on with it. You've just got to start the church, be obedient to God's call, and trust him with what the future looks like, trust him with what the process looks like." And I knew that was God trying to really confirm to me that, we had heard him. It was what he was asking us to do, and I needed to trust him with what that looked like. One of the first conversations we had was, okay, if we're going to build a church, we're going to start a church, then we need to pray and we need to ask God what kind of a church this is going to be, because we knew what kind of church we didn't want it to be. And we thought the foundations of the church were paramount. How we laid the foundations were going to be paramount. And that's when you brought some great wisdom to the table from your experience in the building trade.
Being in the building trade for over 40 years, just knowing that digging out all the rubbish and getting rid of all the waste and putting something really firm in and something strong that's going to last and sustainable. I think that's why we actually called it the Rock as well, to put the rock in the foundations.
Yeah, we knew we had to spend some time digging down deep into what's going to be the most important thing about this church. What are going to be the values? We thought clearly about every family has values, non-negotiables, and we wanted to think about that for the Rock Church. And we read a lot of the gospel stories back then, didn't we? And thought everything Jesus said, it's not just hearing his words, but it was putting them into practice. And we wanted to make sure that we did that as a church, that we focused on discipleship, we focused on helping people go deeper in their faith. And we decided very quickly that front and centre, we wanted Rock Church to be all about Jesus.
For me, I was just excited that God had used somebody like me actually, because I probably think I'd always be overlooked in them sort of positions and circumstances. I believe you were definitely had it in your heart, and you had something special in your heart, and I think God always wanted to use that. And yeah, for me it were exciting times. And then you came home and said, okay, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And then because we was in COVID, we decided to just set up a Zoom call online, didn't we?
Yeah,
and
first
see
of all,
if anyone would join us.
Yeah, it was more of an interest night, just to see if there was anyone out there that wanted to join us. And really quickly, we were receiving lots of messages and calls from people saying, you know, we want to support you, we want to come on this journey with you, we're with you. We were quite overwhelmed at the response we had even before the first Zoom call, weren't we?
And we got backed financially as well, didn't we? People started tithing straight away.
Yeah, it was quite overwhelming. A lot happened very quickly in a short space of time. We were within no doubt that this was a God idea. Definitely not one of our ideas, it was definitely a God idea.
And before long, we had about 60 joining us online. So for the first 6 months, we did it online, didn't we?
Yeah, it was a weekly Zoom call every Sunday morning that was so brilliant, wasn't it? It was so encouraging. You know, every time we saw a new sign-in come on the screen. And I remember one Sunday we had to scroll across because there was more than one screen full of people who had signed into the Zoom call. And we were so nervous them Sunday mornings, weren't we?
I used to pace around the room just before I sat down to show my face on the Zoom call.
Yeah. I think we just could not believe what God was doing, that he was using us, and also that people wanted to be part of it. And it was quite an overwhelming, exciting time for us. So COVID was coming to an end, and we had over 60 people regularly join us on each of the Sunday mornings. So we began to think about where are we going to meet for in-person services. And again, this was another overwhelming kind of feeling and responsibility we started to have. And somebody drew our attention to one of the new schools in the town, Catherine Warrington School. So I remember the day that a number of us went down to have a look at the school and have a look at the hall. And it was incredibly exciting, but again, quite overwhelming. And I think one of my first thoughts was, it's too big. How are we going to fit people in here? Who's going to come? You know, there's going to be 60 of us rattling around in this big hall. How are we going to pay for it? How are we going to facilitate Sunday services regularly, every Sunday? So those were some of my thoughts, a little bit of anxiousness around that as well, but at the same time we were quite excited, weren't we?
So right at the beginning, at meeting at the school, I believe God gave us a scripture from Haggai 2 talking about all the silver, all the gold is his. I don't want you to be worrying about anything about finances. I am going to provide for you. And he said, I will grant you peace. and we've definitely felt a certain peace that goes beyond any understanding about all the finances and everything that we were doing. God was providing.
Yeah. And I think each week that we met there, it was clear that God was gathering people to join us on the journey. It was clear that God was sending people who needed to be part of a vibrant, healthy church community. And we again were just in awe of what God was doing week after week after week. People just kept coming. The seats kept getting filled up. And we were just again reminded that this was a God idea, and he had a plan and a purpose all along, and that you kept telling me Jesus is building his church, Sam. He's just using us.
So May 2022, that's when I actually left the building trade and came on full time, started working full time as lead pastor with Sam.
Yeah. I think a lot of the feedback that we were getting as well as people joined us, people were saying how authentic they thought Rock Church was, how raw and how real. And we always said, we're not going to focus primarily on how things look, how things sound. We're going to focus on people. We wanted to build a very healthy community that deeply cared for one another. Again, just putting into practice Jesus' words, that his command is that we love one another deeply. And we noticed again that the numbers were growing, and some Sundays, people were sat on the steps at the side of the seats in the school hall, weren't they? And that's when I began to get a little bit more nervous. And I worried about people coming in for the first time, looking into the hall and thinking, there's no room for me. That really concerned me because we wanted there to be room for everybody. We wanted to make more space, but we didn't have much space. So we began to pray a lot and seek God about what we should do going forward. And then the Eric Morecambe Centre, we had a conversation with their staff team, and at that time they were really keen for us to pursue perhaps that being a venue for us, which we were really surprised about, because we had approached them earlier in our journey, and it was definitely a closed door on a number of levels. Financially, we couldn't have afforded that. Logistically, they didn't have space on a Sunday morning for us. There were lots of reasons why it wouldn't have worked, but by this time, that door was beginning to open up to us. And again, it was another exciting, big faith step for us to consider and take, wasn't it?
Yeah. So the Catherine Warrington School holds probably about 200. There, the Eric Morecambe Centre is 512. So we've got that same situation at the beginning where we've got some empty seats, but we're not worried about it, because we keep telling people these seats are empty because you need to be inviting people, your friends and your family.
Yeah.
Yeah, on reflection, I'm just so thankful for what God's done over the past 3.5 years. So thankful for what he's done for me personally, especially moving amongst family members as well. Seeing my family members just grow to just a great new level in the belief in God. And then for new people coming to church as well and getting saved, and salvation coming to our house, baptising people as well. We've baptised probably over 40 people so far in the 3.5 years.
Looking back over the last three and a half years, I am so mindful of God's grace. I think it's just been, again, overwhelming. His goodness, His grace, His kindness to us, and how He's been so patient with us, patient with me particularly. When we consider the incredible people that He has put around us that help make Rock Church as good as it is, again, we're so thankful. I'm just incredibly grateful to God for the people that He's brought alongside of us and who carry this with us and who are as passionate about building a healthy, Jesus-centred church as we are. I'm just so thankful, and I'm really excited about what's yet to come.